welcome to all of you that are interested in watching and hearing what we have to say today. And I have the privilege to introduce you to Katrina Montinola and Dr. Mukhtar Lasisi. And we are going to chat up quite a bit on a topic, but I'd like to welcome you both by asking you to just take a minute and introduce your experience or background so that we have a context. Can we start with you, Mukhtar?
Oh, absolutely. All right. Thank you, Donna. It's good to be here. Excited, actually. My name is Mukhtar Lasisi. A lot of people outside of it just call me DML. That's because of the doctor in front of my name. And I'm a principal consultant at Marshall Technology, the CEO as well. And I work with organizations to strengthen how they manage technology risk and data, especially as tools like AI become part of everyday business operations today. So, and a big part of what I do with businesses in recent times is really around helping leadership teams understand where these tools are already being used within the organization, something we call shadow AI, right?
Okay,
So
great.
that's a little bit about myself. That's it.
Thank you. And Katrina.
Hi, so I'm Katrina Montinola, and I am the partner at To Go Advisory, and I am lead of the practical AI practice at To Go Advisory. And the reason I call it practical is for me, practical AI means AI where it that is used to improve a real workflow, and it fits the way people actually work and can be governed. That's most important, measured and supported. So I'm really happy to be here today. Thank you, Donna, for the invitation.
Well, let's key off from what you just said, Katrina, because while we all know that AI is a focus across the globe, the way it's handled seems to be the problem. And many adopt AI across their organizations without understanding and engaging the management and the designers and the employees and the board. And a lot of these organizations experiment with AI and they learn the hard way through the mistakes they make. So kindly share what is a wise way to adopt AI.
It's a very good question.
How
And
about a
I'm
really good framework?
I mean, I think that one of the biggest mistakes I see in organizations is treating AI like a software deployment. It's actually more of a change management initiative that happens to
Absolutely.
involve software, you know? And as far as a framework, well, there's one that I call align, pilot, scale, govern. It's not a very fancy name for it, but I just think of it as align first. So before you touch any tool, bring together management, employees, and the board, to agree on why you're adopting AI. So you got to align everybody first, right? And then you
Mhm.
pilot. So that means start with something low risk, a small project, something maybe where you're feeling the most pain, that sort of thing. Um, and then when that works, then you can scale, right? So you can make it go bigger. Um, but I think in some ways, this is where people, because you can have a nice pilot and it works and everything, but this is where organizations stumble
Yeah,
because, so we have to be more careful in the scale part. And then
yeah.
govern everywhere. You got to govern from the beginning,
Well,
that I think that's
hang
the
on,
most.
hang on to that thought for a minute. Let's hear from Mukhtar on the framework experience
Absolutely. Yeah.
you've gone through. Yeah.
Thank you. And thank you for that, Katrina. That's a very good starting point. I will take it from, you know, what Donna said in terms of, you know, this thing is already here. They've already adopted AI, whether we like it or not. Employees are using it, whether just for efficiency, marketing is using it, sales, they want to get to their leads faster. It's already there, right? And for me, a smart way or a wise way, just like you called it, to start that conversation and start implementing it because it's already there. We're not just trying to implement it. Whether even the CEO, there's a
Mhm.
note taker. I think there was a note taker on this call earlier, right?
Yes.
That's AI. It's already within the
Mhm.
organization, whether we like it or not. So if you're starting and yeah, the good way to start when you're implementing a new one, I agree 100% with Katrina. But when we're addressing this situation where it's already there, we should start from knowing where does it sit? Where does AI sit within the organization right now? Because if you don't know what you have, you cannot protect it. Right. So we're starting from that point. Where does AI sit within our organization right now? That's the visibility part of it. And then we're looking at what are the business cases? What business cases already prompts the use of AI? That would help us start to think about what are the risks, what can put us in trouble already. Then we can start to look at what data is being used. For example, in our own organization, we use AI for note taking on sales calls. Payments get made on those calls. Now, if we don't understand the data that is being processed during that sales call, we wouldn't know enough to say, you know what, when it's time for sales, pick out this AI note taker, because we don't want payment card information captured on this AI note taker, because we don't have control over it once it gets out there, right? So that's a critical conversation that needs to happen. Where is it being used? What's the business case? What data is being captured or processed there? Then we can start to look at human oversight, accountability, and things like. I'll pause there because I know there's still a lot more we need to touch. But for me, in situations which is most organizations, whether small or big, where AI already exists within the organization, whether we like it or not, that would be a good way to take it.
So if an organization came to either of you and said, we want help with the framework, how long would it take for you to advise them on that?
It's not okay. I don't know, Katrina, do you want to take it first?
No, go ahead. But I mean, I think that from my point of view, it would kind of depend on the size of organization, and also how far they've already gone in their journey, right? But we're not talking months and months and months here.
That's
Yeah.
Let's be careful. Can we say it's a month? I'm asking because anybody who's listening who says, yeah, we should do this, needs to have a sensibility for the work ahead.
It's something that it's not as complicated as it seems. Having these conversations can happen alongside the work. You don't have to stop doing whatever before this happens. It could take a month. It could be in fact, it should be a continuous process. But to get it started, yes, I would say a few weeks to a month. Especially within a smaller organization, get that conversation started.
Yes.
Where is it stated right now? Document that. Then you can go back to say, okay, what processes, what business case warranted using this one? What business case warranted using that one? What you would find when you start to have those conversations is that you'd realize that there's some tools that are probably serving multiple purposes, but we have different ones. You can say, okay, this one we don't need it because this other tool can serve that purpose. Or this one puts us at a higher risk. Let's get rid of it and start using this instead. So it's a continuous process because it needs to be continuously reviewed as well.
Sure.
That's true. But I think in a month you can have a pretty nice, solid, here's a game plan and here's where, what we can accomplish in 90 days, what we can accomplish, that kind of thing. I think in a month you could
comforting. That's comforting.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Now, yes, I know a global concern is about business data being shared when they're using external AI systems, which includes exposure of the data handling considerations. How should that be best handled?
I think, Mukhtar, this is one of your favorites, right? You talking about shadow AI, and I've actually also blogged about it, but I'll let you talk about it because
Absolutely, I can take that. So it's interesting, and I started talking about it earlier. Once that data gets out there, you can't control it, and that's why when I started talking earlier, I talked about what data goes in there. So for me, the first place to start around talking about data exposure and all of that is to have a data governance framework in place first. Because if you don't know, just like the AI, if you don't know what data you have and how important they are to you or how much trouble they can put you in, you can't know how to govern them. So that data governance helps the organization inform what should go into AI and what shouldn't. Because not everything, in our own case, we know that payment card information shouldn't go into AI. That's why we would kick out the note taker before we take payment. or before we process any payment for our clients. We know that. Now, another thing would be once that data goes into AI, what happens to it then? Where is it stored? What processing goes through? We don't know. It's a bit of a black box. So you want to make sure that any data you don't want out there doesn't make it into AI intentionally or not. So different ways you can do that. You can either enforce it by blocking everything and then explicitly allow what should be used, or you can do it through awareness. For smaller organizations, I would say awareness is the fastest way to get people knowing why they shouldn't put certain data in certain places. Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. The way I like to say it is treat every AI input as a potential data disclosure and then design your policies around that. So in other words,
Perfect.
all of it should be, you should think about it. I also like to kind of like advise so you know what data you have. Is it PII, that kind of thing, and financial records, regulated data, before any of it touches an AI system. You can't
True.
protect what you don't know, right? So you need to, you need to know that, and then, vet your vendors. Like, does this AI
Absolutely.
system train on my data? Typically, the free
Mhm.
ones do, but the ones where you have a contract, they don't. But ask, where is it stored? Who
Yeah.
can access
They
it? That
shouldn't.
kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
So.
I'll just add to that and say, in fact, that's the client we're working with right now. That's something. They did a pilot. You're talking about experimenting earlier. They did a pilot and it was fine. They actually wanted to use AI for data governance. AI to govern AI. Interesting. So they did a pilot.
Mhm.
It worked perfectly. But when it was time to go to production, that was where we came in and we started asking the question, okay, where would the data reside? Because we're talking about a bank, a major bank. And the question, oh, it's in the cloud. It sits with them. If a company that you haven't, they vetted them and all of that, they would have access to all of your data because they will be scanning every data within your environment. Is that what you want to do? Is that a risk you can take on? And the obvious answer for them as a bank was no, we don't want that. So they had to rethink how they implemented that AI. So they had to what we call bring their own cluster, BOC. So that was what they did in that case. So yeah,
Right.
just to add that context.
Now, another angle, how should management leaders and board collaborate when AI could influence a decision and develop some accountability for operations and oversight?
That's a great question. My opinion and my advice is management operates the AI, but the board sets the guardrails and reviews the outcomes. So that's pretty typical, right? That's the typical relationship between management and the board. So management operates the AI or decides all those operational type of things, but the board is the one that, sets the guardrails and then reviews the outcomes and then you go from there. That's how I think the division of responsibility needs to
Yeah,
be.
absolutely. I would 100% agree with that. Management knows where AI is used. Management knows what decisions AI influence, what controls exist, but board oversees that. They want to have visibility into what AI goes and accountability
Hmm.
is it clear. So that lies with the board. So
Yeah.
that's the relationship. Yes. Okay.
One best practice, because I do so much of the work at the board level, is to say you need a three sister model here. You have to have the board, the management, and the designer of the product you're using
Okay, I
all
like that.
together. The
Yeah.
three musketeers can do something holistically in a way that makes
Absolutely.
more sense than if each one does it separately and then they fight because
Yeah.
they're coming at it from different angles. But if you've got
Which
the three
usually happens,
musketeers,
right?
it's going to be all right. Now,
Yes.
what other angle here is what would be some practical ways to make sure that establishing helpful governance doesn't interrupt the innovation that you're trying to do? It's so, too rich or too hard for the actual get the innovation going. How do you balance that out?
That's a difficult one, right? I
Depending
kind of
on the
like to
risk,
think of it as
depending on
governance
the
should be
risk.
the guardrails on the highway. So it's, the stuff in the middle, and it shouldn't be a toll booth in the middle of it where you got to stop and, so that's kind of a good way to think about it, I think.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. It shouldn't stop anything because the primary thing when you think of business, the number one thing for business is to keep making money. If a business stops making money, they run out. So if whatever governance you're putting in place will stop the business from making money, it's not worth it, right? So however you would do it, make sure it doesn't stop business from running. The visibility part of it is the most passive part of it, knowing what you have. Maybe you want to scan it. Maybe you want to start asking questions. However you want to do it. That's the passive part of it, and that's where to start. Then you can start having conversations. Don't block everything, because if you block everything, you block business operations and nothing happens. Then you start to ask questions. You start to understand your risk. Then like Katrina rightly said, AI implementation or governance is an organization level thing. It's not a compliance thing. It's not just a board thing. It's not just a management thing. It requires a wholesome organizational change where everybody must be involved. Behavioral change before even the technical controls come in. Technical controls, you can leave it for later, because these are the ones where you're not blocking things, but not until everyone is aware of what's happening, their responsibility, and they're starting to do it. Then once you fully understand your key risk indicators, then you can start to block things. So at no point should governance block innovation.
Right.
It kills the business ultimately.
Now, the other trick is understanding what you get from AI, in that, organizations that are smart make it clear that AI supports ideas for then making a decision, but the duty of the decision is with the people, the human beings, right?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Way back in time when AI was being talked about, I worked with a gentleman who did a lot of that work, and he said, AI is stupid. It gives you data and ideas, but you have to do the thinking. And he wrote, AI is stupid. Come on. And if people are taking that data seriously as the decision for me, then you've lost something very important.
Yes.
Have you seen that happen with people?
Oh, a lot in recent times. AI these days determines what customers you serve, what product goes out there, and people have lost the part that AI is just another machine. It's just computer, garbage in, garbage out, like we say. It's just what you feed it or what others have fed it is what it gives out to you. It processes it faster and all of that. And until people start to realize the fact that they're ultimately accountable for the decisions that AI helped them make, then
Absolutely. Yeah.
people would start to think, okay, I have to make decisions myself. Yes, I have all of that data available to me through AI. I have it processed. I have insights from AI, but ultimately I have to make a decision and be accountable for it.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, so the way, I think one of the hardest things now that, in this age of AI is the fact that we kind of have to think about computers, and what comes out of a computer, as in AI, is different now. In the old days, computers were deterministic, right? So, think about it. Your financial software, if it creates a quarterly report, you don't go and double check all the data in it, because it works. It worked last quarter. So that sort of thing, right? But AI is different. AI is actually not an answer machine. And we're used to computers being answer machines, right? AI is more like a capable intern, right? And so it's we have to change that mindset. It's a great tool. I mean, it gives great answers, but sometimes, once in a while, those answers are slightly off a little bit, and we have to be aware of that. It's not like in the old days with your banking software that once it's debugged, it's perfect, right? It's no longer like that, and that, I think that's where people have a hard time. And it's just a mind shift, and people get more used to it as AI proliferates and people get more used to it. But yes, the human has to be there to check the answers. It's not an answering machine.
I get concerned with several cases where the data that was sent through the system had bias in it.
Oh, yes.
You take
Oh,
something
a
that's
lot.
like a
A
health
lot
one
of
and
the
you look
time.
at
Yeah.
that and you go, oh, it's worthless because it's got bias and that's not going to heal anybody with the answers. And how do people protect for that? Do they do that up front or do they learn it the hard way because they look at the data later and say, boo boo?
I would say they need to prepare for that. They
Mhm.
need to design and train the AI with as much data as is allowed to make sure that to take care of those biases. Just going back to what Katrina said just a few minutes ago, when you think of AI as what we're saying artificial intelligence, we're trying to train machine to act like humans. And when we understand the fact that humans make mistakes and humans kids
Mhm.
will learn the biases that they're trained with. Think
Mhm.
of AI like that. When you think of AI
Exactly.
like that, you would know that if you wanted your child to grow up having the best behavior, you have to train them right. And
Gee,
that's
Yes.
we have
and
to
that's
be
Exactly.
what
forgiving of ourselves and our AI. There's a lot of empathy in this whole model.
I know. I know. Because when we think of it, that's what ultimately we're trying to, or at least the AI engineers and all of that, that's what they're trying to achieve, the proponents of AI.
Mhm.
But we should think of it like that it gives you what you give it. The child comes out, they
Mhm.
can be the best product if you train them in the right environment with the right data, not biased data, not,
Mhm.
all sorts of garbage into them. They can, and the same thing with AI. AI can become a best tool for your productivity if you train it right. So if
Yeah.
people think of it like that, they will prepare for those things by giving it the right data to work with upfront.
Yeah, I love that. And it's like the way I like to tell people, think of AI as AI is very fast, very well-read analyst who never sleeps, right? So that's all the good stuff. But the partner in the room is still you. Your
Right.
judgment, the context, accountability, that should always be with a human.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. I agree.
So are there
Absolutely.
other suggestions you might want to offer?
Mm. Yeah. I would start from the point that businesses need to know that when their employees when they adopt AI without their knowledge or without asking permission, they don't mean bad. They're not necessarily bad employees or
Mhm.
bad stakeholders within the business. They, in fact, probably want to be the best at their job and they're just
Mhm.
looking for efficiency, which AI gives. So the wrong thing to do is to block AI and say, no, no use of
Yes,
AI. And
exactly.
that is the wrong thing to do because whether they like it or not, AI will still be used, whether they want it or they don't. AI will be used within the organization. The best thing to do is to acknowledge the fact that it's here to stay. It's
Mhm.
not a battle against AI. It's how do we use it to our benefit, to our advantage as a business. That's what we should be looking at. So they should encourage it, but with proper guardrails in place, with proper governance in place. So that would be the little bit I'll add to everything we've said.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. That totally makes sense.
Yeah. It's about trust too.
Yeah.
When I
Yes.
went to the conference on this, the gentleman at the front stage had said to everybody, if we're looking at an example of you're not feeling well and you go to the doctor for a solution, which would you lean for, the doctor's suggestion or what AI tells you? And 98% of the hands went up for the doctor. And these are all
These are
developers
AI
of
folks.
AI.
That's so
Trust
interesting.
is a challenge,
Yeah.
And one of them said, well, I develop AI tools. And my wife sits down at dinner and says, he said, why don't you use any AI? And she said, I don't trust it. I'll ask you. I trust you. So there is a
Yeah,
lot of time it takes for people to be comfortable enough to know how to use it and how much trust for
100%.
ideation as opposed to the answer.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I would also add that. I would also add that, and going back to the human touch, that as much as a lot of companies are trying to automate and improve efficiency through AI, human touch, if we're not careful, will become the premium.
Mhm.
And I would rather speak to a human customer service than an AI agent. Right? That human touch will not go away because if there's something we understand in business, and because you both understand this part as well, people buy people. People don't buy machines. buy people. So businesses need to acknowledge that they can, if they over automate through AI, they might end up losing the market share.
Oh,
So
well, from an HR standpoint, that's a really serious one. There was a gentleman that was a AI developer for a tool, and he had said to one of his clients who was an HR person how much she kept saying, I love all these AI tools we're using and all of this. And he said, have you checked them for, protections and things like that? She's squawking. It's so much fun. So the next day, his wife said, that company you were talking to the lady? Yeah. Well, there's a job opening. I would love that cool job. So he goes online and he fills it all in without telling her, as though he was her.
Mhm.
And the next day she gets a written offer for the job.
Wow.
And she said,
hey, job offer.
what? And so he calls the lady back and said, see, I showed you that the product isn't protected. My wife now just got an offer and you have no matter.
Wow.
And he said, you really need to fix that. And right now, excuse me, because I got to take her to dinner. She's really mad. But why
I
would
love
you
that
ever
story.
hire somebody without shaking hands with the person, to make sure it's real? So taking
Absolutely.
attention to these things is a real duty. And I just want to say thank you for sharing your views on this and this guidance. And anybody who's watching this is more than welcome to reach out to we all to get some advice and assistance so that you can do this in the way that will make you really successful and calm,
Absolutely.
and you'll be able to dance the floor because of the outcomes. So thank you very much for your time.
My pleasure. So it's a pleasure. It's a
My
pleasure.
pleasure. Yes. Oh, thank
I've
you.
enjoyed
Thank you for
this.
having us.
Thank you for having us. Thank
And
you.
this is a collaboration, so we'll be able to take a look at it from anything in the United States and outside
Absolutely.
as well.
True.
We're
Yeah.
not afraid of the global stuff anymore. I listened to a lot of Earful for the last 4 days in London, and it's just as exciting there. So thank you for that. And we will have a little contact information so that you want to reach out for those of you that have been doing this so that you can reach to us individually or as, a group. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you all. Bye.